Hey, today I thought I'd do a little quick video explaining some things and kind of also explaining the current situation with this game as well. What I'm going to talk about first is the invincibility frames on jumping. Very similar to the DMC games, you actually have invincibility frames when you jump up to the apex. It's pretty much exactly the mechanic from
I'm not dead.
the DMC games. So let's go ahead and try to test it out here really quick. And no, it does not replace having a dash or a dodge by any means, but it gives you a little bit more control. Okay, so let's find an enemy that's easier to do it on. These guys are pretty offensive. I think they're one of the most annoying enemies in the game. Okay, these guys are a perfect example. A lot of people are having problems with these enemies. What they're not realizing is that if you jump up to your apex, you actually are invincible. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. See? 3 in a row. One of the ways I fight these guys is I jump above me myself. And you can also use a neutral special. You can also use a neutral special to get invincibility, but sometimes that may not be something you want to do simply because you won't have the ability to safely recover your health. So generally, wanting to jump helps. I actually talked to Jordy, the developer, and he was the one that said that it is invincible up to the apex as long as you are not attacking. So if you do something like this, you do not have invincibility. If you just jump like this, you do. So if you're used to some of the older DMC games where jumping is one of your main methods of maintaining invincibility frames, you'll actually be right at home here. Now, we'll also work on the boss as well, but he has ridiculous active frames, so not as useful as it sounds on paper sometimes. I feel like these guys need way more startup on their throw. Yeah, stuff like that, where they just punish instantly with no startup. Feels unfair. about the cleanest fight you can get with those enemies right there. Alright, so we're almost at the explanation part of this video, while I'll explain the situation with this game to the best of my ability. But I thought I'd show the boss fight too. It's not as useful on this boss in particular because he has a lot of active frames on this stuff. There you go. Went through his Galactica Phantom with the jump tech. These guys, man, are so annoying. Look at that instant grab. That's the problem with this game, is just the instant grabs and stuff that you can't really dodge because they just do it instantly with no startup. And you can't like back out of the way. Sometimes in this game it feels like it's not my fault when I get hit, and that's not something you want in a beat 'em up, unfortunately. Anyway, what the current situation is that I talked to Jordy. He's one of the original developers of the first game that they made, which was Streets of Fury EX. As you know, I was a beta tester on that game. Towards the end of it, I initially gave them some feedback. It was very similar to this game, where the game felt stiff. Sometimes you could not really avoid attacks because you were not really given the tools to do so. And they went ahead and they did a big update, and they added like dash canceling and dodge canceling and parries and stuff like that. And that's what made that game really good. I know that game is held in a relatively high regard in the beat 'em up community. A lot of people have not played it simply because of the art style, which is understandable. It looks like a cheap, like, Newgrounds game or something, but the mechanics are actually quite solid. It is considerably far deeper than this game is in terms of death and things like that. I talked to him last night, and I left him a massive wall of text talking about the issues in the game, mainly the inability to run and dodge with everybody, no one having a vertical dodge, the excessive amounts of super armor. I gave him a couple solutions, one of which I mentioned in the overview, which was basically just to have some kind of toggle or unlock or both where you can use a run and dodge, because there are some people that are honestly, I think they're kind of stubborn to not want to run and a dodge. You know, one of the problems with being an aging millennial that's been around since the 80s, which is obviously the core demographic for this game, is that people don't understand that older games, they're held on a very high regard, but a lot of times they have a lot of really bad design too. The thing that's different is that people have got used to the stupid things in those games, and they've learned to kind of change their playstyle around them and kind of find ways to either cheat the AI or just kind of play around the flaws. And some people are very much purists. They want things to be exactly the same as they were, whereas there are a lot of games like Fight Rage. Fight Rage is very similar to this game, but in Fight Rage, you have much better defensive options. You have run cancels and dodge cancels, and you also have a parry, which is one of the things that makes that game feel very rewarding and satisfying, that you have the ability to parry and then get a free punish off it right away. So I suggested him to do that. I suggested also, if they don't just reduce the super armor, I think ideally they should make it so that a defensive special actually would break their armor and prevent them from doing it for a while. I think that would make it a lot better. In some cases, you can use your defensive special and kind of get through it and punish, but a lot of times they'll just go straight back into armor again, which feels very unfair and artificial. The enemies are just far more mobile, and they can go in armor far more often than the player, which is what makes it feel kind of off, unfortunately. Those were the suggestions I gave him. I know that they will accept my feedback. Jordy was actually quite nice and thankful that I gave him that detailed feedback, because I did the same thing for their last game. I know that he will likely listen to me. Unfortunately, there's the reality that there's a publisher involved now. They're not just making a random indie game with their friends, and B, there's the whole issue of having to draw new animation frames. I don't think it's something that they can easily fix. If this was like a pixel art game or something, they could probably find like some existing animation frames and maybe fix it that way, but they're basically going to have to like call the artist back and make new frames for everybody, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality of changing anything in a game with a very refined art style like this. They're not using like vector animation or anything, which is why the game looks so nice, because they actually hand drew everything. If they were using something cheap like skeletal animation, they would probably have it fixed by tomorrow. But unfortunately, there's a lot of red tape that goes into it, everything from having to draw new assets and agree with the publisher, or get the publisher to agree with them. So we'll see what happens. I will give you guys any feedback I can. If you'd like to help me out, you can go ahead and leave some comments here about things that you'd like to get changed, and I will send it to him directly. They don't have an official feedback channel right now, but since I know them personally from their last game, the little small amount of work I did on that game, I'm able to actually give it to him directly. So go ahead and help me out, give me some feedback that I can relay to him, and I'll still be playing the game. Most likely, they have not confirmed that anything will be changed yet, but it seems like they are going to be looking into at least fixing some of the unfair stuff, like using a defensive special through an armor attack and still getting hit, which is really dumb, and things like that. Those are things that they can fix without having to create new assets. But I'll probably do Cherry on hard mode, and then I'll probably do a 1cc attempt and speedrun, maybe later this week or early next week. Thanks for watching.